it's been so long since I've done a wrap-up, so I'm not even sure I actually know how to do it. Hello and welcome to my channel, The Danish Readaholic. My name is Silka and today I will be doing my wrap-up for June. I'm an idiot. I think we should just get into the stats so we can get them out of the way and talk about the books. So, I managed to read 5 books this month and I had a total page count of 1,686, which is very decent for me. I would have liked it to be in the 2000s, but I feel like it's fairly close. Like, it's close enough for me to not be mad about it. For authors, I have 2 that I have read before and 3 that were new to me authors. This is kind of like a ratio that I'm fine with. I like discovering new authors, but obviously reading books from authors that I have read before could mean sequels, and in this case it does. Then we have the star rating. I have 3 stars, 1 4-star, and 1 5-star. No 2 stars, so I'm happy. A 3-star for me is a good book, but not top tier. So I don't see a 3-star ranking as a bad ranking. It's decent, just to put it out there. For representation, I have 1 LGBTQ+, 2 multiple, and then I actually also have 2 with no representation whatsoever. That is, of course, a shame. I would like for the none category to be non-existent. Next up we have author nationality, and I'm sorry for a boring chart, but all 5 authors were from the US. Another boring chart coming your way. All 5 books were fantasy. Then we have the type of book. We have 4 books that were a part of a series and 1 that was a standalone. Then we have the intended audience. I have 1 middle grade and 4 YA. As for the format, I have 3 audiobooks and 2 physical books. As for the format, I have 2 owned TBR. I have 1 that was gifted and 2 that I got from Script, but they're in the same one as library, so Script, library thing. I did read 3 on audio, but I do own 1 of them that I decided to listen to instead, so I'm counting it as an owned TBR because I have it physically on my shelf. If it's a book that I don't physically have, it will be in library Script category. So, and finally, we have the release. All of them were prior to 2022. Yay me. Not really though, but. So let's get into the books that I read. I do have 2 sequels, so I can't really talk too much about what they're about, but I'm gonna try and do my best to sum up what the series is about. The first book I read was Rise of the Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz. This is one of the Descendants novels. I think I've talked about these quite a lot on my channel, but in case you don't know, these are like companion novels to go along with the movies. I always thought that this one was supposed to be read in between the second and the third movie, but it's actually in between the first and the second movie, because we're introduced to Uma in this, and she is on the Isle of the Lost, and then we have Mal and obviously the other people, but it's usually Mal who is like the main character. They're in Auradon, and they're following basically the events of the second book, which I didn't remember what happened in the second book, so the beginning of this had me a little, what's going on? I don't know. Because they were talking about some relics that apparently they found in the second book, and I do not remember that whatsoever. I really enjoyed this series. A friend of mine asked me if I would recommend them, and also that she didn't even know that there were novels. I introduced her to the movies, so I do recommend, if you like the movies, I recommend them, but I don't think I would recommend them by themselves. I would recommend them with the movies because they do reference the movies a little bit. If you don't know what the Descendants movies are about, you will be very confused when you go from the first book to the second book, because in the second book they're in Auradon and in the first book they're at the Isle of the Lost and they can't get off. So read it with the movies. It is the best way to go about it, and it is also how they were intended. They're good fun, they're definitely middle grade, but I do like them. The next book I read was There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rose Poole, and I believe that this was actually my first line pick, if I am not mistaken. And for once I actually did read it. I listened to it on audio. I'm glad I did because I might have DNF'd it if I didn't. It was a little bit of a slow beginning. I actually ended up really enjoying it. So we're following 4 different characters, and at the beginning you don't really, they don't have anything to do with each other, but That will change, I can say that much. So it's kind of like one of those stories where we have 4 characters, and from the beginning I'm like, how are these characters connected to each other? I have no idea. The further we go into the story, everything will be revealed and why we follow these specific people, because it all kind of serves a purpose. In this we follow, let me see if I can remember their names. I know we have Anton, we have Fira, we have Hassan, and we have Jude. Hassan is a refugee prince. Fira is like a silent assassin. Jude is a priest, I believe, or a keeper of the word, basically. He is one of the people who believes in the prophecies and are spreading this prophecy that this book follows. I will get into that. And finally, we have Anton, who is kind of, I don't want to say a con man, but he's kind of like a gambling person. And I don't remember the entirety of his backstory, but which is strange because he was one of my favorite characters. But that's beside the point. So we follow these 4 people in a world where there is war. And we have this villain called the Hierophant who is slowly taking over the country. That is why Hassan is like a refugee. He managed to escape when the Hierophant took over his parents' kingdom. The entire plot of the book kind of comes into play when we first meet Jude, who is, I think, is the 3rd or the 4th chapter, and then we're introduced to this prophecy that says that there will be one final prophet who will induce like the end of the world or will save the world. It's one of the two, and I think that they mix it. Some people believe that he will bring the end of the world, other people believes that he will save the world. We follow this journey of prophets and strange magic, and it is great. It is a YA, but I would say that it's older YA, so bordering on new adult, but still YA. Next up, I read Every Heart a Doorway, and I gave it 5 stars. I keep saying that when I was younger, I was a stubborn asshole who didn't want to read popular books. Apparently, I'm still a stubborn asshole because I've been putting this off because of the hype. I was like, no, I don't think I'm gonna like it. Everybody's hyping it up too much, and I just know that when I get to it, I will be so disappointed and I will be that bitch who does not like the series. And I'm not that bitch. I'm not that bitch who does not like this series. I freaking love it. I listen to it because I kind of made this new routine where I listen to audiobooks on my way to work and then I read physical books at home or in the weekends. But I listened to this on my way to work. I have an hour or so each way, so it was like one day and then I was done with this. And I loved it so much and I'm so excited to continue this series. In this world, in this book, it's kind of set in the real world but also kind of not. Let's call it urban fantasy or magical realism, one of the two. But we follow these kids who are taken to this home for wayward children that is like this home for people who have been to magical worlds or magical realms. I just loved hearing people talk about their realms and how it was explained like it was an entire new form of science, let's call it that. It was just such a great experience, such a great reading experience, and I'm really, really excited to get to the next one. So I think I'm just gonna move on because I could just keep rambling about how great I think this is, and everybody should read it. I'm going on this hype train because the hype is well deserved. Next up, I read Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. This was a 5-star prediction for me. Gave it 3 stars. Now, let me tell you what I personally thought that was wrong with this book. Not that it was wrong, but to me, it was too fast-paced. Everything was too fast-paced. I would have liked this to maybe have been a duology, and as you can see, it's a very quick read. So we follow Rasmira, who is training to become a warrior, and once you have reached a certain age, you have to go to this trial. In order to become a warrior, you have to kill these creatures, and you have to kill at least one, and then you have to avoid getting bitten, and if you do that, you are a warrior. She then is sabotaged during this trial, and then she fails and she is exiled. That's how we do things. And then she's basically sent into the woods, kind of to die. Out in the wilderness, she meets Soren and Eirik, who kind of helps her survive, and then I'm not gonna say more because that would be spoilery. The thing that I did not like that much, well, I did like the book, don't get me wrong, as I said, I gave it 3 stars, is a decent book for me. I felt like it was a little bit too fast-paced. I felt like they succeeded too fast with what they set out to do. I mean, there is this battle scene close to the end that I feel like wasn't too fast paced. It was great, but I felt like everything that they set out to do, they got in the first attempt. And I know that that is not the case with one of the things that they set out to do, but it was one of like the 6 things that they set out to do. I feel like it's a little bit too convenient for my liking, but it still was good fun. I did like the characters. I definitely liked Eirik the most. He was very sassy and I freaking loved it. I also liked Rosmira a lot, but she was not my favorite character in this. I liked Eirik the best. And Rosmira could be a little bit annoying from time to time, but I really did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars, as I said. There was just a little bit too much missing for me to give it 4 stars. So the final book that I have read is Cloak of Night by Evelyn Skye. I know, who is she? She finished a series that she started last month. So this is a sequel to Circle of Shadows, and in Circle of Shadows we're introduced to this world where we have the Taigas, who can do magic. They can kind of do these incantations of creatures and then they can take the power of that creature. Then we meet a villain called Jin who has died and basically brought back some of the magic from the other world or the afterlife into the actual life, and then he is kind of making his army, calling it the Ryu. And then we have our main characters. We have Damon, who's called Wolf, Sora, who is called Spirit, and then we have Fairy and Broomstick. There is a lot of character development in this. There is a lot of going back and forth in beliefs, and there is a lot of evolving. I really liked the first book. The first book, I felt like it did something very interesting with the magic system. The journey that we were on were great, and I liked the whole exploring, like not exploring, but discovering that there is a villain. It was kind of like they stumbled upon a large group of people in the forest and they got suspicious, so they went to check it out and figured out that there was actually a villain, and it was a villain that they knew. But I'm not going to say more. And then they have to figure out how to defeat this person. And to be completely honest, it is one of those books where I'm like, how are you even going to do it? It seems a little bit hopeless. And I like those kind of books. I want to be confused as to how they're going to pull it off. The second book continues that. There is some things along the way where I got a little, maybe that is pushing it a little bit too far with the magic system. I liked it where it was. I did like it. I ended up giving it 3 stars, and that was, as I said, a decent book. I was gonna buy a copy and put it on my shelves, but I'm not sure I will. In my opinion, it is a great YA fantasy duology. It is very, like, if you ask for YA fantasy, you will get it here. So that was actually it for my reading for June. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment telling me what you have read in June and which one was your favorite. If you just want to let me know that you're here but don't know what to comment, you can always leave a green heart. If you like this video, please hit the like icon, and if you want to see more of my bookish content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. And until I see you next time, bye!